G'day everybody, it's Des here from my Aussie Garden and Kitchen Edition, and today I'm making tomato powder and I'm going to show you how to make it from scratch, and then I'm going to give you at least 25 ways that you can use it in your kitchen. The first step you want to do is slice your tomatoes and slice them into nice thick slices like I'm showing you here. If you cut them too thin, they're going to disappear when they dehydrate. So as you can see, this is about the size that I always go for. When placing them on the tray, make sure you have them side by side. You can have the sides touching if you like, but don't overlap them because you want as much airflow as possible over all the surfaces. By slicing the tomatoes, you're going to have more surfaces exposed to that air that's flowing through the dehydrator, and it's going to help them dehydrate a lot quicker and a lot more effectively in a shorter time. When laying the slices down onto my dehydrated trays, I like to put the end pieces on their own tray. Now the reason for that is that the end pieces have skin on the back of them, and I find that they take a little bit longer to dehydrate. So you're going to be able to have them on their own tray and just leave them in for a little bit longer, whereas the other ones you can pull them out a bit earlier. Slide your tomatoes into the dehydrator, and if you can, leave a bit of space in between each shelf. It's going to give more airflow in between the trays, and then it's simply close the lid and set up your time. On average, mine take around 12 hours, so I'm setting a 12-hour timer. And with the temperature, I've set my temperature to 60 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit on the screen right now. And mine took about 12 hours and they came out so well. Look at that, they look so good. And you should be able to snap them or push on them and they'll crack and break down straight away. And you know you've got a nice dehydrated tomato. Listen to that, it sounds fantastic. Collect them all onto a tray, and if you were dehydrating tomatoes and not making a powder, I highly recommend that you let them sit and cool down. It's called conditioning. You never want to take a dehydrated item and put it straight into a container and close it up. You don't want to risk the chances of moisture collecting in that jar. It's quite possibly going to introduce mold or bacteria, really bad things on your food. So let them cool down after you've dehydrated. So obviously the next step is to put them into your machine and grind away. Now the beauty of this is that this machine does the job perfectly. You need to be careful if you're using a blender at home, especially one with a plastic case, because the hard friction can actually cloud the plastic. Look at that, isn't that fantastic? That is ready to go. You really can't ask for any better than that. The tomato powder and any other vegetable or fruit powder may compact a little in the grinder, so I like to use a chopstick just to break it up a little bit, just to loosen it up, and that's ready to go to pour out of the container into your storage jar or container that you've got handy. And of course a funnel always helps to get it in there without making a mess everywhere. As you can see, it's absolutely essential to have your powder dry. You can't have moisture in there at all. It's going to be a lot easier to work with, and it's also just common sense that you need a dry powder that you're going to be able to store in a container for a while, because hopefully this is going to last you for a while. You'll be able to grab it at your convenience and use it in any recipe that you want, and it's so much fun to use. More on that in a minute. Now, all you've got to do is keep on going with the same process. Again, getting your tomatoes into your grinder, grinding away, and storing that powder into your jar until you're done. It's as simple as that. I always have a pastry brush handy because it's really good to wipe down the funnel and the containers, because you'll get a little bit more powder out of that, and you'll be surprised at the end. You could get up to a teaspoon, even more, and that adds up. And because it's a concentrated mix, that's actually quite a nice little amount of tomato powder that you've got there that you've saved by using your pastry brush. Now that I've got my tomato powder ready to go, here's about 20 or so suggestions where I think it's really good to use. Now with your powder, for instance, it's really good to sprinkle it into some mayonnaise, give it a stir, and make a tomato flavoured mayonnaise. You can spread that on sandwiches and rolls. You can drizzle that over a salad. There's all sorts of things you can do with a flavoured mayonnaise. The next one is things like cream cheese or cottage cheese. But with cream cheese, for instance, again, add it to the cream cheese, mix it in, and you can put it on bagels and rolls and things like that. And that's a tomato flavored cream cheese. Adding tomato powder to a flour dough, so when you make bread, you've got a beautiful tomato flavored bread. It's fantastic. And of course, you can break that dough down into rolls and have tomato flavored rolls as well. Fresh pasta. When making fresh pasta, get some powder and add it to the mix as you're making your pasta dough, and you're going to have a tomato flavored pasta that is going to taste fantastic. Speaking of pasta, just sprinkle that powder over the top of a cooked plain pasta to add some tomato flavor to it. If you're after a quick meal, you might have a few things laying around in the fridge, toss them together with the pasta and that powder on top from the tomato powder you've made, and you've got yourself a beautiful quick pasta meal. Actually, one thing I like to do too is just like spreading some Parmesan cheese on top, sprinkle a bit of the powder on top as well, just to enhance that tomato flavor and add an extra punch of tomato to your pasta dish. The powder goes really well in rubs for meat. Say you're making ribs or something like that, you've got tomato powder that you can add to it to give that real kick of tomato flavor to your rub or the spice blend that you're making. Baked fish is beautiful, baked in the oven with a few slices of tomato and the powder sprinkled on top of the fish, and that bakes into it nicely. And that concentrated flavor of the tomato really does so well on baked fish. Roasted veggies, that's another one where you can get your tomato powder, sprinkle it over your roast veggies with a bit of seasoning, a bit of salt and pepper, get them in the oven and roast away, and you've got that extra flavor on them. It's fantastic. Hot potato chips or potato wedges, you can put the tomato powder as a seasoning on top of the chips or the wedges. Again, with a bit of salt, mix it all through, and that is fantastic. All right, so I've talked about the powder. Let's talk about some paste. Once you've made that tomato paste, what can you use that for? Well, the first thing I can think of is a pizza base. You can put a tomato paste on the bottom of a pizza base, or maybe you have some English muffins or something like that. You can put it on top of those and make mini pizzas with a bit of ham and stuff on, ham and cheese, for instance, on top. Of course, stews and soups. The tomato paste is going to do just the same as commercial tomato paste in your soups and stews. Sauces, if you're making a sauce and you need tomato paste, just a spoonful of it. There you go. No opening up a big container. You've got your powder with a bit of water, or you can actually sprinkle the powder straight in and stir it in to your sauce. Rice. Tomato powder is great with rice. You can sprinkle it in while you're cooking the rice just to enhance the flavor of the rice with that nice tomato flavor. Again, a bit of salt just to enhance the flavor overall, and you're onto a winner there. Now with the rice, you can have that as a side dish. You can have it with kebabs or whatever you like, but you can also put it into wraps and rolls and have a big wrap with a beautiful salad and some tomato flavored rice in there, and you're onto a winner there. What about a tossed salad? You can grab a tossed salad, and while you're tossing it, instead of having a dressing, toss some tomato powder in there with, again, maybe a little bit of salt if you like. Stir it all around, and you've got yourself a tossed salad with a little hint of tomato floating all around in every single bite that you eat. That's actually good too if you make a pasta salad. Make up a pasta salad, sprinkle the tomato powder all the way through that pasta salad, and you've got yourself a tomato pasta salad in no time. Now, speaking of salads, people like to have dressings. Why not put some tomato powder into some dressings, give it a shake or give it a stir, and you've got a tomato enhanced dressing for your salads. Okay, corn on the cob. Who loves a good sweet corn on the cob? Try sprinkling some tomato powder over that corn on the cob, and ooh-wee, it tastes so good. Oh, and popcorn. You need to sprinkle some on popcorn and see what that's like. And if you wish, add a little bit of salt again to enhance the flavor. It's your call, but I find that butter, salted butter, and tomato powder on popcorn works really well. Okay, so you've made your popcorn. It's going to make you thirsty. So how about some juice? Take that tomato, mix it with the water into the quantity that you need to make your tomato juice. You can add things to that. Cocktails, you can make a cocktail. Everybody's heard of a Bloody Mary. You've now got tomato powder on hand to make a tomato juice to make your Bloody Mary. This really is a great ingredient to use on its own. It's packed with tomato flavor, but don't be scared to add a little bit of salt or a little bit of sugar just to enhance the flavor. I do that with some things, and you will find that there's a little bit of difference where it just raises that level a little bit more of that tomato flavor. When it comes to ratios for mixing your tomato powder with water, I find that 3 tablespoons of the powder to 4 tablespoons of water gives me a nice tomato paste. Now, obviously, you can take that as a base measurement and play with it as you will, depending on the size of the quantity that you need. For a nice tomato juice, I find that a 1/4 cup of the tomato powder to 4 cups of water gives me a nice tasting juice. And with that, I'll add a little bit of salt or sugar just to enhance the flavour. For a tomato sauce that's somewhere in between a tomato paste and a tomato juice, I find that 1 cup of the powder to 3 cups of water makes a really nice sauce. And that's something that maybe you could pour into the base of a pizza. Again, you can add a little bit of salt or sugar if you need to enhance that flavour a little bit. And as always, you can adjust the quantities of the powder or the water if you'd like it a bit thicker or a bit thinner. I'll store my powder for an average of 6 months, and what I'll do is I usually vacuum seal them, but in this case, what I'll do with this one here is I've got food grade moisture absorbers, and I'll drop one of those into this, and that will sit quite nicely on the shelf without any mold or clumps forming. And do remember, it is so important that you have to make this as a really dry mix, no moisture at all. Watch your jar over the next couple of days after filling it and look for any moisture. If there's any moisture inside there, condensation and sticking, you're going to have to take this out and rehydrate it again. You really have to be careful when storing these types of things long term with no moisture. I do like the tomato powder quite a bit more than others because it's so versatile and can be used in so many things. And I really like the fact that instead of opening a big jar of tomato paste this size or even those tubs, I can just come over and grab a spoonful of this and just use a spoonful at a time if that's all I need. Don't forget that you don't just have to use fresh whole tomatoes for your tomato powder. You might be canning tomatoes and you've got leftover skins. Take those skins, dehydrate them and turn them into powder. There's nothing wrong with those skins. You can get some powder out of them and get some good use out of those leftover skins. I've got other fruit and vegetable powder videos on my channel. Please go check them out. Thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you on the next cooking or gardening video. Bye for now.